What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to episode 25 of my Eastside Hockey Manager Early Access Let's Play here with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And today, well, we are going to be kicking off Season 3 of this Let's Play, of this playthrough. Hopefully you guys are good. Just want to start things off by saying thank you for your support on this series. It's great to see you guys getting involved. I always love reading the comments. I'm learning stuff seemingly every video. And so thank you to you guys who watch, you know, on the daily, whenever these videos go up. It is really greatly appreciated. If we could smash, I don't know, if we could hit 250 likes, that would be incredible. If not, I won't lose sleep. I'm very excited about this save, and let me tell you now, it's been a crazy kind of off-season of dealings. There's been a lot of wheeling and dealing, perhaps a few contentious ones that you guys won't agree with. So I guess we'll start with them. That seems like the logical place to begin. So we'll start with the players in. We'll start with the frees. So the first player we picked up on a free in the off-season was Milan Lukic, who actually scored against us in the playoffs in our first season when he was playing for Boston. This guy is an incredible left winger. You can see here he's a first-line talent, quite physical, has great hitting. If we look at his history, last 2 years for Boston, he's not been superb for them. Last year was a pretty disappointing year, but we've picked him up on a free for £4 million a year wages. But he's got great bravery, great hitting. He just looks like a really good power forward, if I'm honest, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do for us. The next free who we brought in was this guy, Palmi Ari. He's 25, just a good young kind of depth player, can play on the right-hand side as well as on the left wing, so kind of just a useful resource player. We did lose a few players who left on free, so I'll cover them in a second, but we needed someone to come in and he filled that role. And the last free we got, another great free if you ask me, was Yundal. This guy, 30 years old. I believe in real life he plays for the Rangers. You can see here in his last 2 seasons, he's exceeded 50 points as a defenseman, which is incredible. He just looks superb. He's on big wages, which I guess is why the Rangers let him go on a free. We've picked up his contract. He's got a 5-year deal on $7.75 million. He's performed well in his last 2 years. He looks incredible. He looks like one of the best D-men in the league. And I am absolutely delighted to have him at the club and at the franchise for at least the next 4 years. So those were the frees in. Just a quick look at the players out who went out on frees. A few bigger names here. Matt Fratin rather left us, the 28-year-old. Just not that great, was on kind of big wages. We had a lot more depth come in, so I decided to let him go. We also had Derek Grant go, who was a good depth player, but we've let him go. Similar story with Blake Parlett, just a good backup player who we've let go because we had better options coming in. Perhaps the most notable of the players leaving on frees being Roman Polak, who's now joined the Avalanche. He left us, but his contract was coming to an end. He was on fairly big money. He's actually taken a massive wage cut to go to the Avalanche. Don't think we're going to miss him too much, considering some of the players we brought in. And the one and only other free transfer who left us was this guy, Rob Didas, who was just on crazy money for us. He was on $3 million a year, I think, and he was just playing in the Marlies team. And I tried to negotiate a contract buyout to get him out of the club, and he would reject it. So I decided to release him to free up cap space because of players like, I think it's Yundal coming in. Or Yundal either coming in. We are getting kind of close to the cap, so I needed to free up some space, so I let him go. Anyway, perhaps where this gets most interesting is the trades, because there's some pretty big ones. We'll start with the first one here, which was the trade of Jason Megner to the Avalanche in return for their 3rd round pick in 2017. Jason Megner was just a player that, with a lot of the new free players I'd brought in, was very much a fringe player, taking up unnecessary cap space, was only ever going to play for the Marlies, so he traded him away for a 3rd round pick. We also got rid of Zach Still, who was just a backup player last year, who didn't actually perform that great and actually played a lot of games. He got 7 points in 62 for us. And we also let go Mark Fain, who was just on crazy money. As you can see, $3.5 million a year. And in return for those 2 players, we got the Rangers' 2nd round pick this coming year. Worth noting that Fain has since been put on the waivers by the Rangers, so clearly they have kind of come to the conclusion that his just wages are just too excessive for them. But I think that was a quite good trade to get rid of 2 very kind of players that I probably would have given up on waivers anyway and waived their contracts, and so to get a pick for them isn't too bad. Anyway, the next trade is the big one that we made, and it's a huge one. The trade involved Nazem Kadri, who is a good centre, but he's 26 and was really only ever going to play in our 4th line. Leo Komarov, who I talked about last episode as being a player who deceptively got good kind of recently, but with Lukic joining us, I decided to just let Komarov go as part of this deal. This deal might seem ridiculous as well on the face of it, but there is method to my madness, trust me. We then got Hytrin, who we traded away, who was a player we drafted in the summer. We gave away his rights and the rights to Hunter Ricky, who was a fourth-line player who we drafted, and our first-round pick for this coming year. In return, we took on the contracts of Greening, who has since gone and left us. We sold him to the Devils, or waived him to the Devils, rather. The next player who we got rid of, in fact, no, we traded him. You can see we traded him for Tim Kennedy, who I'll talk about in a second. We also got rid of Jonas Enroth here, who's 28, and we took on his contract from the Senators. So we basically traded away Kadri, Komarov, Hytrin, Ricky, our first round pick this year. In return, we got two real fringe players of the Senators who they were trying to get off the books, but we did get one gem in return. And this is why I did this deal. We got in Jack Eichel, or Eichel. I'm going to have to get used to saying Eichel because I've been saying Eichel for far too long. But we've got him in. And this deal's a bit of a crazy one because we're giving away the first round pick, giving away a few decent third and fourth line prospects, I guess, in Kadri and Komarov, players who, would have been good depth players. And in return, I got two players on excessive wages who the Senators didn't want, and they're kind of their gem in their crown, I guess, in Eichel. And it's a decision that I really wasn't sure if I wanted to do because we're giving up a lot. But I have managed to secure myself another team's first round pick for this year, so we've not lost a pick this year. And this guy's just incredible. There's no two ways about it. This guy playing out on the right, possibly with McDavid down the middle in a few years, is just going to be an absolutely terrifying prospect. And so I did decide to do that deal. Anyway, the next trade was the one for the first round pick I just alluded to, and that was the Oilers' first round pick. We gave away Richard Panik, who was a good player, but a player who was really on the fringe of things, Victor Louvre, and last but not least, David Booth, who was a good scorer for us last year, but really, he's a little bit old at 30. And in return, we've got a first-round pick of the Oilers, which I was quite happy with. Anyway, the last trade, I kind of talked about it, but Colin Greening, who was one of the players we took on in that Senators trade for Jack Eichel, we managed to just give up straight away. And in return, we got Tim Kennedy, who's on significantly less wages. So not only did it free up, more cap space, I guess, for us. But I feel like we've got a good player here in this guy who's a good depth player, third line talent on very low wages. So I'm quite happy with that kind of trade, really. I think that kind of worked out for the better. So that's kind of the trades which have been going on. There's a few there. I'd be interested to know if you would have done the Eichel deal. It's a bit of a mental deal if you ask me. But I think he's going to be a very good player for us. Anyway, I guess the next thing to do would be to have a look at our team. So, in terms of our actual roster, this is the 23-man roster we're going with. We have Bernier in goalie still. We then have Alexander Salak, who we brought on as a free this year, just before the end of the season from, I can't remember which European team it was. It was from Sibir in the KHL. You may notice as well, I've got a few faces. I got the face packs working and added in some extra faces for some of the new players who I didn't have faces for already. Anyway, the next player is Jacob Chytrin, who is just a titan of a player. We drafted him obviously second this year. He comes into our team. He's going to be our number 7 defenseman in the first team. Because of his low wages, he kind of suits that role. He's 18. He looks like he's going to be great for us. I love his mentals. His physicals are very good. Got his face with adding him into my face pack, and the 18-year-old I think will get a decent amount of ice time this year. Anyway, defensively we have Cam Fowler still, who will be playing in our first line still. We then have Stuart Percy, who now has a face, who's a good young prospect still at 23 with first line potential and number 1 potential or number 2. Next player we have is Ryan Pilon, who we drafted in our first draft in 2015. He looks like a very good player still. He spent a year playing in his junior team again. You can see he got 64 points as a D last year, so I'm excited to see what he can do this year. We now have Keith Yundal, who, as I talked about, was a free transfer who we brought in. He is the second highest earning player at the club and at the franchise behind... who's he behind? He's behind Kessel. But just to put this into perspective, Fowler here on the right was our kind of previous best D-man, I guess, and this is the comparison of the two players. So as you can see, Yundal really, when it comes to the mentals in terms of his aggression and bravery, is significantly better. We don't have the most aggressive team in whole. We're not a particularly tough team, but what we do is we have a lot of technical ability, and that's kind of mimicked throughout the entire team. We have Jake Gardner here, who again, 26 years old now, getting on a little bit, Jake, but still a number 1 or 2 talent, a very good defensive player. One of only a few natural right defensemen we actually have in our team. A lot of them play on the left and the right. Gardner is one of 2, in fact, the other one being Yarmison, who naturally play on the right. Anyway, you can see here Yarmison actually shoots left despite playing on the right, but last year he had a good year for us, 37 points in 77 games, of course joined us from the Blackhawks the previous year. We then have Lawson Cruz, who last year did a good job for his junior team. If we just take a look, you can see he got 57 points in 57 games. At the start of last episode, when I was looking over the team, he was a player who hadn't improved, and I touched upon a few episodes ago how I'd noticed weird jumps in attributes where a player just seemed to seemingly, from out of nowhere, just his CA would jump, and you wouldn't see any development slowly, kind of week on week of young players, but rather it seemed like they just had a sudden influx in attributes, and that's what's happened with Lawson Cruz here. He has, I don't know what he's had over the summer. I don't know if he's on steroids or something, but he suddenly emerged with 20 strength, some really good aggression, some great hitting, and some nice technicals to back that up. And, well, he looks like an absolutely fantastic player, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do this year. Anyway, next player is Lukic, who, as I mentioned, a really hard-hitting left winger. We'll be playing in our second line, but we have some real talent in depth this year, which is really exciting. JVR here, Riemsdyk, still going to be our number 1 kind of left winger in the team. We then have Bozak, who I think is going to be demoted this year to kind of a second line centre for us, but a very talented player still at 30 years old. We then have Jack Eichel, who of course we brought in. He is going to be playing out on the right for us for the most part, although he might get some ice time this year down the centre. We then have Gauthier, who's a player who I've kind of had in my ranks for a while. I've been weighing up trading him away, and in various deals I have offered him out and, you know, tried to get him as part of a deal, and teams haven't really bitten and taken the opportunity to get him. I've actually decided I'm probably going to keep him this year as a depth player. You can see he got 7 points in 55 games last year, but his projected career role, at least by my scout, is that he has second line potential. So we're going to keep him around. If he improves, great. If he doesn't, I'm not going to lose too much sleep. The next player, Tim Kennedy, a player who we traded for this year, just on a really low overall salary. Going to be a good depth player, I think, the kind of player who can really step in when we have injuries. The next player we have is Andrei Loktionov, who is a Russian player with some injury proneness, so that kind of works out nicely that we have the backup who can play centre and left wing. But this guy, Andrei, great player, not particularly aggressive, but just a really skilled skater. You can see here, skilled forward, second line talent, good for 40 points. Came in as a free transfer at the end of last year, so I'm quite happy to have him in. Next player, Connor McDavid, who hasn't improved since last time you saw him, but a good player. Probably going to be starting as our centre this year. I want to really thrust him into the team and see what he can do. So, Connor, no pressure, but you're not at the Oilers on this save, and I'm hoping that we're not going to ruin you by pushing you into the team too soon. Anyway, I should point out, Oilers fans, as you guys know, I don't have much of a knowledge about hockey. I don't think that you ruin talent. I think that your management needs to kick up the arse. So there you go. Anyway, Nylander here, saying his name properly, or at least going to try and get in the habit of saying it properly. The Swede, 20 years old, improved a lot last year. Face-off still a little low for my liking. Not the most aggressive player, but quite a skilled skater. A good centre. He'll probably play out on the right for us a fair bit, but a good player to have in our ranks. Next player we have is Mathis Olim. This guy's 30 years old, Norwegian. We have added his face, and you may notice that he has a Blackhawks jersey on. This guy, I mentioned last episode how he never played in the NHL. He did actually spend 1 year playing for Rockford, where he actually got 32 points in 60 games, but then he went straight back to the Swedish Hockey League. Since then, the Blackhawks lost his rights. We've picked him up on a free. He's a nice little player. Second line talent. Will actually probably be playing in our fourth line because of the amount of talent we have in our team, but very excited to have him here. Next player, Phil Kessel. Just the man of the moment, I guess. He's just been the best player in our team for the last 2 years. You can see last 2 years, 147 points followed by 119 points. Slowed down a little bit last year, but still contributed massively and was a large kind of reason, I guess, behind our success. The next player we have here is Kyle Palmi Ari, who, as I mentioned, was a player we brought in this year as a free. Just a third line talent, fairly quick on the ice. Nice player to have. And last but not least, the guy who likes to get drunk before playoff games, Alexander Rodulov. The Russian looks very good. He's 30 years old. It's a 4-year deal that he still has at the franchise. Excited to have him here. Of course, joined us very late last year as a free. Didn't have too much time to kind of leave his mark. In pre-season, 10 points in 9 games for him. Maybe he can continue that for this coming year. Anyway, in terms of how we actually line up, here is my lines, which I've done myself this year, and we've got them saved all properly and stuff. For some reason, I've named them after the Kelly Clarkson song, Since You've Been Gone. Answers on a postcard as to why I've done that. No idea. Anyway, looking at our defensive pairs, we're going to go with Yundal and Hjalmarsson to play. And the reason I've actually not gone with Fowler and Yundal, which I actually think I mistakenly said before, is because as you can see here, Fowler has 17 creativity, Yundal has 18 creativity, and Hjalmarsson only has 11 creativity. And I thought it would actually benefit our defensive pairs more to have kind of 2 defensive pairs where we have a creative player on the left, and then a slightly more rounded player in Gardner and Hjalmarsson playing out on the right. Our third line consists of Pilon, who, as I mentioned, had a good point scoring year last year, the youngster. He comes straight into our team. And also Stuart Percy, who's proven his worth over the last few years. They will make up our third line. In terms of going into our forward line, this is where kind of changes have been made. Our first line is going to consist of Riemsdyk out on the left and Kessel out on the right. Nothing new there. But I've decided to drop Bozak down a line, and we're actually going to go with Connor McDavid, to begin with at least, as our starting centre. So that's going to be a big kind of moment for him, I guess. Our second line is a fantastic line. Very happy with this strength. We go with Milan Lukic, who my scouts think is a first line talent. Fantastic stuff. We have Radulov out on the right. Again, scouts think he's a first line talent. And then we're going to play with Bozak playing alongside them, who again, first line talent. And one thing that I really like about how the teams come out of this year is that I really feel as if we have some real strength in depth now. We have a really well balanced roster, I feel, with some fantastic players. Onto our third line, we go with Andre here out on the left. Again, second line talent, so to have him in our third line is good. We then go with Jack Eichel, who has first line potential. He will be playing as a centre for us in our third line, but as I mentioned, down the line I see him adapting to play out on the right hand side with McDavid down the middle and Cruz out on the left. On the right hand side of this forward line, we go with Nylander, first line potential again, good young player. And then our final forward line, which is a very strong fourth line really, is consisting of Palmi Ari. We then go with Cruz out on the left, who's just a great physical player. Could be very good playing in this kind of slightly tougher line. And then last but not least, we go with Mathis Olim to make up our men. I would go into detail of all the power play and penalty kill lines, but they're kind of made up of the same players. If you want to pause it and take a look, you can do that. Look at our unit tactics. Not too much has changed this year. Our first line, you can see the overall ratings here, just so you guys get an idea. So first line, very strong team with some decent speed, but not too much toughness. Our next line is actually technically better in terms of the toughness is 1 star higher and all the other stars the same. So that gives you an idea of our strength in depth. I'm actually going to put them to play 40 seconds as well as our first line, because I feel like we have such an even kind of strength first and second line that will work in our favour. The only difference in tactics between these two lines is that I have hitting set on normal and not easy with this tougher second line. Our third line is good offensively, good speed, but not so great when it comes to defending or being particularly tough. As a result, I'm actually going to change a few things there, but that's how we're going to go. We're going to go with Pilon and Percy, then obviously Nylander, Eichel and Loktionov. So not the toughest line, but I think they'll do a job for us. I'm hoping that our strength and toughness will be mostly asserted, I guess, by our second and third line. Second and fourth line. And speaking of our fourth line, this is the line we have. It's a aggressive line, you know, going to be playing high puck pressure. They're going to have short stints on the ice of 20 seconds. I'm going to look for them in that time to use kind of bursts of energy. And yeah, that's how we're lining up. So that's kind of everything that's been going on at the franchise. In terms of how we look financially, because obviously with all these changes, you're probably wondering, well, how close are you to the cap in that case? Right now, the total player salary per year is 65.9 million, so we're just 3.1 million under the cap of 69 million, giggity. Looking at last year, we actually made a profit last year, which is kind of odd. Our wages were significantly lower than they are this year in terms of our salary per year, so we probably won't make a profit again this year. So far this year we are making a profit, but that is off our season ticket sales. But all in all, club's finances are really healthy, £18 million balance. life is good on that front. So that's kind of what's been going on at the franchise. There's probably other stuff I could talk about, but honestly, it's escaping my mind at this point. One thing I will point out is I do have a few players on a fitness training schedule. I'm still getting the issue with players getting really randomly tired, so we've changed a few things to hopefully overcome that. In terms of just a little bit about our preseason schedule, you can see today we're actually going to be taking on the Islanders. But if you look at our preseason, we started fairly early. We beat the Ducks and the Sabres in August, followed up with wins against the Blackhawks, Coyotes, Boston, the Preds, Red Wings, and who's this? The Panthers. And then the only defeat we had was actually a 6-5 defeat against the Flames, which is a little bit disappointing, but good to see us get plenty of goals. All in all, a pretty solid preseason. And yeah, we're going to get straight into today's game, where I'm hoping and praying that we can get off to a really good start. Of course, we have topped our conference the last 2 years. I feel like this is the strongest roster that I've ever had during my time at the Maple Leafs. I feel like the trades this year have been very, very good trades. I'd be interested to know what you guys make of them, so feel free to give me your critiques, I guess, down in the comments. As immediately here, we get off to a bad start. The Islanders scoring after 2 minutes and 19 seconds, so we're going to have to bounce back there. We are going to have a face-off, however, in their zone. It's going to be our 4th line here. So Olim, the Norwegian, probably his first touch of the puck could be if he wins this face-off. Can he do a job for us? He can. Gets knocked out. We have the puck still. And Palmi Ari there. Good goal for him. Cruz getting the assist, which is good to see. Palmi Ari, of course, one of our 4th line players. One issue we had last year, particularly in the early stages, was really our 2nd, 3rd and 4th lines not doing too well when it came to actual goal scoring, and we were relying far too much on the likes of Bozak, Van Riemsdyk and Kessel to grab the goals for us. I'm hoping that's something we can overcome here as we are on the attack, and well, Kessel scores there. McDavid with the assist, Van Riemsdyk with the 2nd assist, so that's a good goal for us. Good to see that first line gelling. Of course, we are perhaps taking a slight hit and swapping out Bozak and McDavid and really giving McDavid that kind of faith and that kind of, what's the word, permission to roam and really do his thing in this first line. But it's worked for us there. Second period has not consisted of too much. Just a quick look at the shot chart here. We're dominating the game, to be honest. The Islanders have had 14 shots. We have had 35. We've not won quite as many face-offs or board plays as them, and our pass completion isn't as good, but we seem to be creating a fair bit. So hopefully we can keep that going here as we are on the attack. This is our 2nd line. Radulov scores, the Russian. Percy with a nice little assist there. Good for him to get an early point. Would like to see Pilon maybe get a point, the D-man, if he can, or at least an assist of some kind. As we are going to have a face-off here in our zone. 3-1 to us, a good early goal in the 3rd, but the Islanders are going to look to bounce back immediately here and reduce the deficit to 1, although maybe we can win the face-off. We can't. Long shot comes in and it will find its way to Gardner, who grabs a goal from them. I think that was Strom with the assist, who's a bit of a hot talent, I believe, in the NHL at the moment, or at least in the OHL, until he gets drafted this June. Anyway, Bozak been injured, so that is not good news. At least we are blessed with some decent centres, I guess, in McDavid, Eichel and Olim, but hopefully that's nothing too serious, or we could be relying on the youngsters in Eichel and McDavid to really step things up for us, I guess, and kind of, I guess, fill his shoes if that's a long-term injury. Bozak did have a few injuries last year, which is a little bit concerning, but we do have some strength and depth, and well, Yundal has scored there on his debut. McDavid with his 2nd assist of the game. He is having a fantastic start to his Leafs NHL career. It's a great game this has been. We're 4-2 up here. We're on the power play. Maybe we can get a few more before the game is up, as we are on the attack here. And the shot comes in. It's saved by Jones, but the power play will continue. There's going to be about 50 seconds left when the power play is said and done. Just 1 minute and 41 left on the clock. The Islanders looking like they're going to be losing this game, and we could be getting off to the perfect start. Despite our defensive improvements, you'd have to say that we don't look that much better defensively, having conceded 2, but nevertheless, the assisting skills of McDavid have worked in our favour here. And we're looking pretty good for a win. I've gone for something perhaps a little bit unconventional this year in terms of with players like Hytrin, Pilon, McDavid, Eichel, Cruz. I'm really kind of, I guess, forcing a lot of younger players into the NHL at a young age. I'm hoping that's going to work for us. I appreciate in kind of the real world of hockey that very rarely happens. You'd be more likely to see these players ending up playing for the Marlies or their junior team for a few years. But I want to give these players a chance. They've improved a lot. All of them have improved a lot. And I think they'll improve even more if we give them as much ice time as possible. We are going to be ending the game with a penalty here. Or rather, sorry, with a power play here. McDavid wins the face-off. We have a shot. It's saved away. The only thing that can make this game better is if McDavid was to get a goal. But time could be against him. Although we are having a hell of a lot of shots here from deep. Unfortunately, offside being called. 5 seconds left on the clock. That is going to be game, set and match. This isn't tennis. This is hockey. But we've won this one. 4-2 here. We end the third very convincingly on a power play. We probably could have got a few more on another day. Looking at it, we do go top of the league. If we just have a look at the box score so you can see exactly what happened. You can see here, Palmi Ari got the first goal of our season. That was after we'd conceded, however, but just 20 seconds after we'd conceded. Good to see us bounce back like that. Kessel getting his first goal of the season, which is always good. McDavid with an assist there, got 2 points in today's game. Randall, the Russian, getting a goal there. That's good. He didn't have as big a remark as I'd like in our playoffs. Of course, he joined us very late for that kind of conference final. Unfortunately, couldn't change our fortunes because we were already losing, but good to see him get a goal there. And Yundal as well getting a goal, and McDavid with the assist there. So all in all, we've done pretty well. It isn't actually the Strom I was thinking it was, unfortunately. I was thinking of Dylan Strom, I think. Might be wrong. Maybe that is Dylan Strom. No, it's Ryan. I'm crazy. Answers on a postcard. Am I right in thinking it's Dylan? I might be completely wrong there. I just know he plays for the Otters alongside McDavid. And is it predicted to go quite highly? But anyway, that's going to wrap things up for today, guys. I think this year... Oh, actually, how long's Bozak out for? Twisted ankle a week. Okay, could be worse. In terms of when I'll be back for next episode, you guys seem to like last year where I kind of took bigger gaps between games. I'm thinking of maybe doing 20 games an episode. Maybe slightly less, maybe 15. We'll kind of play it by ear. I'll mix things up. I'll try and live com some of the bigger games that come up this year, depending on when they are. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys for them. Let me know, as I mentioned earlier, what you make of my trades. If you have enjoyed this series and are enjoying, I guess, just everything about EHM, leave a like. Let me know what you're liking about the game so far, if you've played it. If you're just watching this and you don't actually own the game, I'd be curious to know what you make of it as a series, and like having watched the game, what you make of the game, because I appreciate you've probably not had a chance to play it. And I'd be curious just to know what your take is away from it, having seen kind of what I've achieved and what I've done, and kind of what you've seen, I guess, when I play the game. But anyway, I'm now rambling horrifically. Thank you so much for watching the first quarter of a century of this series, guys. Here's to another 25. Who knows, maybe this will be one of the few series that gets 100 videos on my channel. That'd be kind of cool. That's something perhaps to aspire to. So yeah, that's going to wrap things up. Thank you for watching. And other than that, I apologise for my rambling, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. It's me, Jack, and I'm out.